Commander Vixara adjusted her tactical visor, the holographic display flickering with battlefield metrics as she surveyed the desolate terrain. The human outpost lay just beyond the ridge, a pathetic collection of prefabricated structures that her Zephyrian battle squad could reduce to particles in minutes. Well, that was the plan, anyway. Status report, she barked in her neural comms. All units in position, Commander, Lieutenant Jaxer replied. Sensors indicate minimal resistance. 17 human life signs detected. Vixara's mouth curled into what passed for a smile among her species, a predatory display of razor-sharp teeth behind cobalt blue lips. 17? That's barely worth our time. She huffed, her breath crystallizing in the frigid atmosphere of this backwater planet. Remind me again why the High Council considers these creatures a threat. They have claimed 3 of our outposts in the Andromeda Arm, Commander, Jaxer said with unmistakable irritation. Despite being technologically inferior, they are resourceful. Resourceful. Vixara rolled her eyes. Is that what we are calling suicidally stubborn these days? Start the countdown. Standard annihilation protocol. The timer began its descent on her visor. 3 minutes until attack. Vixara had led dozens of cleansing operations across the galaxy, but humans were relatively new to her hit list. The Zephyrian Empire had encountered countless species during their expansion, most wise enough to surrender immediately or join as subservient allies. Humans, apparently, hadn't received that particular memo. Commander, Jaxer's voice interrupted her thoughts. Our long-range scanners just picked up something strange. There's only one human life signature registering higher activity levels than the others. And Vixara sighed. Perhaps it's their commander having a panic attack. No, it's moving, heading directly toward our position. Vixara straightened. One human? Coming here? Alone? She laughed, the sound echoing through her helmet. Now, this is interesting. Perhaps they are sending a negotiator. Or a sacrifice. Should we abort the countdown? Absolutely not. Behold your fire on the approaching human. I want to see what this is about. She unholstered her pulse rifle. I will handle this myself. Commander, protocol dictates. I'm well aware of protocol, Lieutenant. But I'm also dying of boredom. One human poses no threat to me. Vixara disengaged from the neural network and stepped out from behind the rocky outcropping. The bitter wind whipped across the barren landscape as she moved forward with practiced precision. The human would see her soon. Her battle armor, while advanced, didn't include cloaking technology. No need for stealth when your species was at the top of the galactic food chain. Through her visor, she spotted the human cresting a small hill about 30 meters away. Vixara froze, momentarily confused by what she saw. The human wasn't in a vehicle. No power d'arme. No visible weapon systems. Just walking. It appeared to be female, dressed in what looked like primitive fabric coverings and a long coat that flapped dramatically in the wind. This has to be a joke, Vixara muttered to herself. Or distraction. She quickly scanned the surroundings for hidden troops or weapons, but found nothing. The human continued its approach, seemingly unconcerned. That's far enough, Vixara called out, her translator converting her natural clicks and hisses into the human language. She raised her rifle to emphasize the point. The human stopped, tilting her head slightly. From this distance, Vixara could make out more details. Dark hair pulled back tightly, pale skin, and an expression that was disturbingly calm for someone staring down the barrel of a Zephyrian pulse rifle. I was wondering when you'd show yourself, the human said, her voice carrying clearly across the distance. I've been waiting for hours. Vixara blinked all 4 of her eyes in succession. Waiting? For us. She laughed again. You know we are here to destroy your outpost. Yes? To kill every human on this miserable rock. So I have heard. The human smiled, and something about that expression sent an unfamiliar sensation down Vixara's spine. My name is Kira Vaughn. I'm here to prevent that. Now Vixara was genuinely amused. You? Alone? Against an elite Zephyrian battle squad. She lowered her rifle slightly. I must say, I admire your species' capacity for delusion. It's almost endearing, not delusion. Efficiency. Kira took another step forward. We could have sent our entire garrison, but why waste the resources when one person can handle this? 1 minute to attack countdown. Jaxer's voice crackled in her ear. Commander, we should eliminate this human and proceed. Vixara held up a hand to signal her troops to hold position. No, this is too entertaining. She addressed the human again. Tell me, Kira Vaughn, what makes you think you can stop us? Experience, Kira replied simply. This isn't my first encounter with Zephyrians. Oh, and yet you still breathe? Impressive. Vixara's fingers tightened around her weapon. Or perhaps you have only faced our lower-tier conscripts. I assure you, my squad consists of pure-blood elites. Pure blood, Kira repeated, nodding. That would explain the overconfidence. Vixara felt a flash of anger. Careful, human. I was considering giving you a quick death as a reward for your bravery. Don't make me reconsider. 30 seconds. Jaxer warned in her ear. I have a counter-offer, Kira said, sliding her hands into her coat pockets. Leave this planet now, and I won't have to hurt you or your soldiers. Vixara couldn't contain her laughter this time. It burst from her in sharp, barking sounds that would have terrified most species. You won't hurt us? With what? Harsh language. If necessary. Kira shrugged. Though I'd prefer to avoid violence entirely. 10 seconds. Vixara raised her rifle again. I'm afraid that's not an option, Kira Vaughn. Your outpost dies in 10 seconds, and you die now. She fired a single pulse. A bright blue beam of concentrated energy that could cut through reinforced steel. It was a perfect shot, aimed directly at the human's heart. Except Kira wasn't there anymore. The beam passed through empty air, and Vixara barely had time to register confusion before something struck her from behind with impossible force. Her armor absorbed most of the impact, but she still staggered forward, catching herself before she fell. She whirled around to find Kira standing just behind her, completely unharmed, looking almost bored. How did you zero? Jaxer announced. Commencing attack. The sky lit up as energy weapons fired from multiple positions around the ridge, converging on the human outpost in the distance. Vixara kept her eyes on Kira, who didn't even turn to look at the impending destruction of her home. You should have accepted my offer, Kira said quietly that a series of explosions echoed across the landscape, but something was wrong. The blasts were coming from the wrong direction, from where her troops were positioned, not from the outpost. Commander, Jaxer's panicked voice filled her helmet. We are under attack. Our positions are compromised. Impossible, Vixara snarled, still keeping her weapon trained on Kira. Status report now. The only response was screaming, followed by static. What have you done? Vixara demanded, taking a step toward Kira, who remained perfectly still. I told you, one person can handle this. Kira's smile returned. I'm just a distraction. Fury surged through Vixara's veins. She lunged forward, intending to seize the human by her fragile neck, but once again, Kira moved with impossible speed. Not just dodging, completely disappearing from view. You are wondering how I'm doing this. Kira's voice came from behind her again. It's not technology. At least, not the kind you understand. Vixara spun around, firing blindly this time. A rapid burst of energy pulses that scorched the ground and nearby rocks. None of them found their target. Jaxer, all units, converge on my position. Vixara shouted into her comms, but only static answered her. They can't hear you, Kira said, now standing several meters away. And they can't help you. I'm afraid they have been neutralized. Neutralized, Vixara repeated, a cold feeling spreading through her chest. You are lying. My squad consists of 12 elite warriors. No single human could, not me, Kira interrupted. My partner. Although partner might be understating things a bit. As if on cue, a massive shadow passed overhead. Vixara looked up to see something descending rapidly from the clouds, something large and impossibly fast. It hit the ground with enough force to send tremors through the rocky terrain, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. When the dust settled, Vixara found herself staring at a hulking figure nearly twice her height. It was vaguely humanoid, but clearly not natural. Some kind of battle suit? No, the movements were too fluid as it straightened to its full height. Its surface seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, reflecting the pale sunlight in disorienting patterns. "What is this?" Vixara demanded, taking an involuntary step backward. "What kind of technology?" "Not technology," the massive figure said, its voice a deep rumble that vibrated through Vixara's bones. "At least, not entirely." The creature, if that's what it was, moved toward her with surprising grace for its size. Up close, Vixara could see that its surface wasn't solid at all, but composed of millions of tiny, constantly shifting components. Like nanites, but organic somehow. Its face, if it could be called that, was a featureless mask except for two glowing points that might have been eyes. "Commander Vixara Nethral," it said, her name sounding strange in its resonant voice. "Your battle record is impressive. 37 successful cleansing operations. Over 7,000 confirmed kills." Vixara felt her throat constrict. "How do you know that?" "We know everything about you and your empire," Kira said, stepping forward to stand beside the towering figure. "Your strengths, your weaknesses, your battle tactics, your chain of command, your fears." The creature added that Vixara's tactical training took over. She fired her rifle directly at the creature's center mass, emptying the weapon's entire charge in a continuous stream of destructive energy. The beam passed straight through the creature's body, leaving a gaping hole, which immediately began to close as the nanite-like particles flowed back into position. "Conventional weapons won't work, Commander," Kira said, almost apologetically. "We have evolved beyond that." Vixara's voice cracked slightly. "What are you?" The creature's face shifted, parts of it flowing aside to reveal something underneath. Something that looked disturbingly human, yet not human at all. "A hybrid. I am Nexus," it said. "Once human, now something more. Kira is my anchor to humanity. Impossible, Vixara whispered. Humans don't have this kind of biotechnology. Our intelligence reports are outdated," Kira finished for her. "Deliberately so. We wanted your empire to underestimate us, to keep sending small squads like yours that we could eliminate without attracting too much attention." Vixara's mind raced. If what they were saying was true, if humans possessed this level of biological transformation technology, or worse, if this was some kind of natural evolution, then everything the Zephyrian Empire knew about them was wrong. "Why not just destroy our fleet?" she asked, playing for time as she tried to activate her emergency beacon. "If you have this power, why engage in these small skirmishes?" "Because we are not like you," Nexus said, its voice surprisingly gentle despite its intimidating presence. "We don't seek extinction, only coexistence. These demonstrations are meant to convince your leadership to reconsider their expansion policies." "Demonstrations?" Vixara laughed bitterly. "You killed my entire squad." "Did we?" Kira raised an eyebrow. "Check your life sign monitors." Vixara hesitated, then glanced at her tactical display. To her shock, all 12 life signs from her squad still registered. Weakened, perhaps unconscious, but alive. "We could have killed them," Nexus said, "just as I could crush you where you stand. But that's not our way. Not anymore, at least," Kira added with a grimace. "We have learned from our mistakes." Vixara's mind was spinning. Nothing in her extensive training had prepared her for this situation. The human outpost, clearly a trap. The helpless colonists, bait. And this, whatever Nexus, was completely beyond her understanding. "What happens now?" she finally asked. "Now," Kira said, "you take a message back to your High Council. Tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that Earth and all human colonies are off limits. Tell them we are prepared to demonstrate our capabilities on a much larger scale if necessary. And if I refuse," Nexus stepped closer, looming over her, "then I replace your consciousness with mine, return to your ship disguised as you, and deliver the message myself, after which your body would be irretrievable." The cold matter-of-factness in its voice convinced Vixara it wasn't bluffing. "I will deliver your message," she said through gritted teeth. "Good choice," Kira nodded. "Your troops will regain consciousness in approximately 1 hour. That should give you time to reconsider your perspective on humanity. One last thing, Nexus added, its form beginning to shift and compact. We will be watching, always watching. Before Vixara's eyes, the massive creature seemed to dissolve, its millions of components flowing like liquid into Kia. The human skin rippled as the nanite-like particles were absorbed, and for a brief moment, her eyes glowed with the same light as Nexus's had. Then it was gone, and Kira stood before her, looking entirely human again, except for the knowing smile that played across her lips. "Safe travels, Commander," Kira said, turning to walk away. "Oh, and you might want to update your species database. Categorize us as apex predator this time. It will save lives in the long run." As Kira disappeared over the ridge, Vixara remained frozen in place, her worldview shattered. For the first time in her illustrious military career, she had failed a mission. But more importantly, for the first time in her life, she understood fear. The humans weren't prey. They never had been. They were something far worse, predators who had learned patience. The journey back to the Zephyrian command vessel was the longest of Vixara's life. She'd gathered her unconscious squad members, all alive, just as the human had promised, and loaded them into their transport ships with mechanical efficiency. Her hands moved through the familiar motions while her mind remained trapped in a loop of disbelief and dawning horror. "Unacceptable," she muttered to herself as she piloted the lead ship toward the looming silhouette of the dread horizon. Completely unacceptable. The docking procedure passed in a blur. Medical drones swarmed to collect her incapacitated soldiers, while senior officers demanded immediate explanations. Vixara brushed past them all, heading straight for the communication chamber. This wasn't information she could trust to subordinates or standard channels. Commander Nethral, Admiral Zoltak, greeted her with obvious displeasure as his holographic form materialized. His scaled skin reflected the ambient light in shimmering patterns of authority. "Your mission transponder indicates failure. Explain yourself." Vixara stood at rigid attention, her four eyes fixed forward. "Admiral, I must speak directly with the High Council. What I have encountered requires immediate strategic reconsideration at the highest levels." Zoltak's secondary eyelids flickered, a sign of irritation. "You presume much, Commander. An elite squad defeated by a handful of primitives does not constitute an emergency council session. With respect, Admiral, what I encountered was not primitive." Vixara fought to keep her voice steady. "The humans possess capabilities beyond anything in our intelligence reports. They have been deliberately misleading us. Impossible. Our intelligence network is unparalleled, and yet completely wrong in this case." Vixara activated her helmet's recording function, projecting the encounter with Kira and Nexus into the space between them. Admiral Zoltak watched in silence, his expression shifting from skepticism to concern and finally to something Vixara had never seen on a superior officer's face before: fear. "This recording," he said slowly, "has been verified by my armor systems and the ship's AI upon my return. It's authentic." Zoltak turned away, speaking rapidly into a private channel. When he faced her again, his posture had changed. "The Council will receive you immediately, Commander. Prepare for priority transit." The Great Hall of the Zephyrian High Council was designed to intimidate. Towering columns of polished obsidian rose toward a ceiling adorned with the animated constellations of conquered star systems. The 9 council members sat on elevated platforms, looking down at Vixara from behind energy fields that distorted their features just enough to create an unsettling effect as she'd finished presenting her evidence, both the recordings and her personal testimony. Now, silence hung heavy in the chamber as the counselors communicated through their neural network, deliberately excluding her from their deliberations. Finally, the central voice, the council's elected speaker, addressed her. "Commander Nethral, your record has been exemplary until now. We have no reason to doubt your account, particularly given the corroborating evidence. What troubles us is the implications." Vixara dipped her head in acknowledgement. "The implications are clear." Central voice. We have severely underestimated humanity's capabilities and evolutionary trajectory. Perhaps, another counselor interrupted, or perhaps this was an isolated incident. One enhanced human and some advanced biotechnology does not represent an entire species. With respect, Vixara countered, the human, Kira, spoke as if this capability was widespread. She referred to we and us consistently. And the creature, Nexus, implied that what I witnessed was merely a demonstration. The counselors exchanged glances. The central voice leaned forward. What is your assessment, Commander? You have faced countless species in combat. What makes these humans different? Vixara considered her words carefully. Her career, possibly her life, depended on striking the perfect balance between honesty and respect. Humans are unique in my experience, she began slowly. Most species follow predictable patterns when threatened. They either fight with everything they have immediately, or they surrender and seek terms. Humans appear to have developed a third option, controlled revelation of capability. She gestured to the frozen image of Nexus hovering above the center of the chamber. They could have destroyed our fleet weeks ago when we first entered their territory. Instead, they allowed small incursions, sacrificed minor outposts, all while studying our tactics and response patterns. They weren't fighting for survival. They were gathering intelligence. For what purpose? A counselor demanded. I believe they are assessing whether we can coexist, Vixara said. The human explicitly stated they don't seek our extinction, only coexistence. They spare my squad when they could have easily eliminated us all. The central voice's expression darkened. Or perhaps they're simply toying with us, enjoying the hunt before the kill. Many predatory species exhibit such behavior. Perhaps, Vixara acknowledged. But there's something else. Something that concerns me more than their technology or their strategy. She paused, gathering her courage. They understand us better than we understand them. This suggests they have been observing our empire for longer than we have been aware of their existence. A murmur rippled through the council. The implications were disturbing. Their supposedly superior intelligence network had been compromised, possibly for years. What do you recommend, Commander? The central voice asked, all pretense of superiority now gone from his tone. Immediate cessation of all offensive operations against human territories, Vixara said without hesitation. Withdrawal of our forces to defensive positions at least 3 sectors removed from their claimed space. And most importantly, a diplomatic initiative, not from a position of strength, as is our custom, but from a position of genuine respect. Her words hung in the air, heretical by Zephyrian standards. Their empire had expanded for millennia through force and intimidation, never through compromise. You would have us show weakness? A counselor snarled. I would have us show intelligence, Vixara countered. The humans could have obliterated my entire squad. Instead, they sent a message. They are giving us a choice. She straightened her posture. In my assessment, it may be the last choice they offer us. 3 days later, Vixara found herself on a diplomatic vessel heading toward neutral space. The council had debated for hours before making their decision. Not unanimous, but decisive enough. They would meet with human representatives, assess the situation directly, and determine whether this new species could be managed through means other than conquest. Vixara had been honored with leading the diplomatic mission, a position that would make her either a hero or a convenient scapegoat, depending on the outcome, as the ship decelerated near the designated coordinates. An abandoned mining station orbiting a gas giant. Vixara reviewed the dossiers on the human representatives they expected to meet. Standard diplomatic procedure, except there was almost nothing of substance in the files. Names, titles, brief physical descriptions. No psychological profiles, no leverage points, no weaknesses to exploit. Commander, her communication officer called. We are receiving a transmission from the station. On screen, Vixara ordered, straightening her ceremonial armor, more ornate than practical for this occasion. The view screen flickered, and Vixara managed to suppress her reaction when Kira Vaughn's face appeared. Commander Nethrao, Kira greeted her with that same unsettling smile. I'm pleased the High Council took our message seriously. Ambassador Vaughn, Vixara replied, the new title feeling strange on her tongue. We received your coordinates. My team is prepared to board the station for negotiations. There's been a slight change of plans, Kira said, her expression unreadable. We'd prefer to come aboard your vessel instead. Alarm bells rang in Vixara's mind. Allowing unknown entities with potentially superior technology onto their ship violated every security protocol in existence. That would be unusual, she said carefully. Our protocols are based on assumptions of superiority that no longer apply, Kira finished for her. If we wanted to compromise your vessel, Commander, we could have done so without announcing ourselves. The worst part was Vixara couldn't argue with that logic. She glanced at her second-in-command, who gave a slight nod. Very well, Vixara conceded. How many in your delegation? Just 2, Kira replied. Myself and a colleague. We can board via your main airlock in 20 minutes. The transmission ended before Vixara could respond. Security teams on full alert, she ordered. Level 1 containment protocols for the reception area. If they can do what your report described, her second-in-command said quietly, containment protocols won't make any difference. I know, Vixara admitted, but it makes the crew feel better. Exactly 20 minutes later, the airlock cycled. Vixara stood with 6 armed guards, watching as the inner door slid open to reveal Kira Vaughn, dressed in what appeared to be formal human attire, and a tall, slender human male with striking pale eyes. Commander Vixara, thank you for your hospitality. May I introduce Dr. Tanner Blackwell, our xenobiological specialist. The man stepped forward, extending a hand, a human greeting gesture that Vixara had been briefed on. She reluctantly touched her palm to his. Doctor, she acknowledged. Welcome aboard the diplomatic envoy. Thank you, Commander, Blackwell replied, his voice surprisingly deep for his frame. I've studied your species extensively. It's an honor to finally meet a Zephyrian in person. Something about his phrasing set Vixara on edge. Studied our species? I wasn't aware humans had access to Zephyrian biological data. Oh, we have access to quite a lot, Blackwell said with a smile that reminded her uncomfortably of Kira's. Your empire hasn't been as secure as you might believe. Vixara felt her secondary heart rate increase. Let's proceed to the conference room. The High Council is waiting to join via secure transmission. As they walked through the corridors, Vixara noticed both humans observing everything with casual interest, not the wide-eyed wonder or thinly disguised fear most species displayed when first boarding a Zephyrian vessel. They moved with the confidence of tourists rather than diplomats in potentially hostile territory. The conference room had been prepared according to the limited information they had about human comfort requirements. Atmospheric composition adjusted, temperature lowered, even synthetic approximations of human food and beverages provided. Please be seated, Vixara indicated the chairs opposite her own. The council will join us momentarily. Kira and Blackwell exchanged a glance before taking their seats. Before they join, Kira said, there's something you should know, Commander. Vixara tensed. Yes, this meeting isn't really about negotiating terms of peace, Kira said, leaning forward. It's about explaining facts you need to understand. Facts, Vixara repeated, her hand instinctively moving toward the ceremonial dagger at her belt. The first fact, Blackwell continued smoothly, is that humanity doesn't want war with the Zephyrian Empire. We never did. Your expansion into our territory was noticed, assessed, and could have been stopped at any time. You claim much, Vixara said, fighting to maintain her composure. Our empire spans 17 sectors. We have conquered species far more technologically advanced than yours. Have you? Kira asked, raising an eyebrow. Or have you simply never encountered a species that was genuinely more advanced? There's a difference between technological development and evolutionary potential, Commander. Before Vixara could respond, the holographic projector activated and the 9 members of the High Council materialized around the table. The central voice began to speak, but Kira raised a hand, silencing him with a gesture that should have been meaningless but somehow commanded instant attention. "Esteemed counselors," she said, standing, "thank you for agreeing to this meeting. We have exactly 1 standard hour before a demonstration begins, so I suggest we use our time efficiently." "Demonstration?" the central voice repeated. "We were informed this was a diplomatic negotiation." "A common misunderstanding," Blackwell said, also rising. "This is indeed diplomacy, but not negotiation. We are here to establish understanding." With that, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small spherical device, placing it on the table. It hovered slightly above the surface, then projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, far more detailed than any Vixara had ever seen. "This," Kira said, pointing to a tiny section highlighted in blue, "is the current extent of the Zephyrian Empire. Impressive by local standards." She gestured again, and a much larger section illuminated in green. "This is human territory." Vixara stared in disbelief. The green section encompassed nearly a third of the galaxy, including regions the Zephyrians had never even explored. "Impossible," one counselor sputtered. "Your species has been spacefaring for less than 3 centuries. You cannot possibly control this much territory." "Control is such a limiting concept," Blackwell said with a dismissive wave. "We don't need to physically occupy space to consider it part of our sphere of influence. We have other methods of maintaining awareness." He touched the device, and thousands of tiny pinpricks of light appeared throughout the green section. Each of these points represents what you might call a nexus node, similar to the entity Commander Vixara encountered, but with diverse specializations. "You are saying," Vixara began slowly, "that there are thousands of these beings throughout the galaxy." "Millions, actually," Kira corrected. "The map only shows the major nodes, each capable of instantaneous communication across any distance, each able to manifest physical form when necessary." The implication struck Vixara like a physical blow. If they were telling the truth, and every instinct told her they were, then humanity wasn't just another spacefaring race. There was something else entirely. "What are you?" the central voice asked, his usual authoritative tone replaced by something approaching reverence. "We are humanity's next evolutionary step," Blackwell explained. "Some of us, like myself, appear entirely human but carry the Nexus symbiote internally. Others, like the one Commander Vixara encountered, can shift between forms. All of us remain connected to the greater network." "A hive mind," Vixara suggested. "No," Kira shook her head firmly. "Individual consciousness is preserved. We simply share information and capabilities when needed. Unity without uniformity." The central voice leaned forward. "And the demonstration you mentioned?" "Ah, yes." Kira glanced at what Vixara assumed was a human timepiece. "In approximately 45 minutes, every weapon system in your empire will simultaneously deactivate for exactly 1 hour." Stunned silence fell over the room. "Every weapon?" Vixara finally asked. "Including personal arms?" "Everything more sophisticated than a blade," Blackwell confirmed. "From hand pulsers to dreadnought cannons. The effect will be temporary and cause no permanent damage to the systems. Just a demonstration of capability." "Why tell us in advance?" the central voice demanded. "Why not simply do it and send your message that way?" Kira's expression softened slightly. "Because that would be an act of aggression, and our goal is coexistence. We respect your species enough to explain our position clearly. You have built an impressive civilization, achieved great things. We have no desire to see it fall. What you are describing isn't coexistence," Vixara pointed out. "It's subjugation dressed in polite terms." "No," Blackwell shook his head. "Subjugation would be dismantling your empire and absorbing your worlds into our territory. We are simply establishing boundaries. Your people can continue to govern yourselves, expand in other directions, develop your culture and technology," Kira added. "All we ask is that you respect the boundaries we have outlined and cease hostilities against any worlds under our protection." The counselors fell into heated debate among themselves, their neural network connection obvious from their synchronized movements and expressions. Vixara remained silent, watching the two humans carefully. There was no triumph in their demeanor, no gloating. If anything, they seemed patient, like teachers waiting for students to work through a difficult concept. Finally, the central voice addressed them again. Your terms are unexpected. We had anticipated demands for resources, technology exchange, possibly even territorial concessions. We have no need for your resources, Kira said simply. And as for technology, she smiled that unsettling smile again. We have already studied everything of interest in your databases. Vixara felt a chill run through her. You have infiltrated our secure networks. Your concept of secure is charming, Blackwell said, not unkindly. But yes, we have had access to your systems for decades. How else could we learn your language and customs so thoroughly? The realization of just how completely they'd been outmaneuvered settled over the Zephyrian delegation like a physical weight. Their mighty empire, the terror of 17 sectors, had been under observation like specimens in a laboratory. I have one question, Vixara said, finding her voice. That day on the planet, you could have sent any message. Why choose me specifically for this revelation? Kira turned to her, those dark human eyes, somehow, seeing too much. Because you are different, Commander. In all our observations of your species, you have shown something rare among Zephyrians, the capacity to reconsider your assumptions when presented with new evidence. You value survival over pride, intelligence over tradition. She paused. You are what your species needs if they're going to adapt to this new reality. Before Vixara could process that statement, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Her communication officer burst into the room without ceremony. Commander, we are receiving reports from across the Empire. Weapon systems are failing everywhere. Defense networks, planetary shields, even personal arms, all offline. Vixara looked at the two humans, who remained perfectly composed. Right on schedule, Blackwell noted, checking his timepiece. This is just the beginning, Kira said, addressing the stunned council. We have prepared extensive documentation explaining the new boundaries and protocols for emergency communication should any questions arise. I suggest you use this hour to begin adjusting to your new reality. She turned to Vixara. Commander Nethral will serve as our liaison moving forward. She's demonstrated the exact qualities needed for this transitional period. And just like that, Vixara understood her new role. Not a diplomat or a warrior anymore, but something far more important. She was to be the bridge between two civilizations, one ancient and proud but stagnant, the other young but evolved beyond recognition. I accept the responsibility, she said formally, ignoring the surprised murmurs from the council. As the humans prepared to depart, Kira paused beside Vixara. You asked what we are, she said quietly. The truth is, we are what happens when a prey species decides it's tired of being hunted. We are what evolution produces when survival requires more than teeth or claws or weapons. She smiled one last time, and for just a moment, Vixara glimpsed something beneath the human exterior, something vast and connected and impossibly complex. We are what happens when the prey learns to hunt back.